Welcome to the Untold Tales audio anthologies. Written by Dr. Jeffrey A. Robinson and narrated by Melissa Del Toro Schaffner. Eradication. Scene 1. The office of Dr. Damon Carlson, Chief Environmentalist on the UN Environment Program World Conservation Monitoring Center, based in Cambridge. Ben Matubi, the director's primary assistant, hurried into Dr. Carlson's office. "Sir, I've received a special communiqué for your attention." "What is it now?" said Damon. "Well, there's apparently some kind of bizarre infestation in the Amazon jungle, and the executive director in Kenya has instructed us to send a team to Brazil to check it out." "Oh, I heard rumors about that a couple weeks ago. But there have been so many stories about how invasive species are being transported from one location to another, disrupting local ecology, that we've come to disregard all but the most severe reports. We have to focus on more immediate issues. We already have formal teams addressing water shortages and desalination plants in Mexico, pollinator loss in India, biodiversity conservation in Southeast Asia, and ocean acidification. We simply don't have the manpower to address anything new." "Well, this might be something you can't ignore. At least the executive director thinks so. Look. Here are some photos of the infestation. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. They're sending us samples, too." Damon took the folder, visibly annoyed. No one's sure what it is, so headquarters has classified this as a Level 4 environmental incursion and assigned it to this office. They've authorized transportation for a 4-man team to visit the site, using a private plane. This is unheard of, thought Damon. Headquarters is notoriously frugal, and they rarely authorize expenditures for anything other than administrative activities. "Damn," he muttered to himself. "My resources are already stretched. I don't need another wild goose chase." It was only then that he finally opened the folder and looked at the photos. Blinking in disbelief, he stared at the pictures. The images showed the Amazon jungle ravaged by thick pink vines that were encroaching and covering all surrounding vegetation. Close-ups of the encroaching growth showed pink, rubbery vines, about the thickness of a man's thumb, that had dark veins of something black that traced their length. The pink vines twisted and crept around trees and bushes, which appeared to wither and die at their touch. A panoramic view of the site looked more like an alien landscape from a science fiction movie than a verdant rainforest. One photo seemed to show more than a dozen acres of vegetation that had been completely destroyed. "What the hell?" he said softly. Glancing up at Ben, he said, "You're right. We've got to check this out. Take Henderson's team from Mexico and send them there." Ben nodded. "I'll make the arrangements and notify Henderson. Kenya HQ has authorized a plane to take the team to the city of Manaus in northwestern Brazil. From there, the team will take a helicopter to a research outpost in a place called Verdum. Make sure they have the Iridium sat phones that we got from the military," said Damon. "I'll need a report as soon as he gets there." "You said they're sending samples?" "Yes," replied Ben. "They're being sent here by special courier, and they'll also send cuttings and biological samples to the CDC. Whatever this is, really has them spooked." Dr. Carlson continued to examine the photos. "Let me know when they arrive at the lab. I want to see them up close as they get here." The director was already considering several scenarios about what could have caused this type of devastation. Relocation of a rogue species, or even a random mutation of some local species was at the top of the list, but even an accidental release of a biowarfare experiment would be better than the outlandish suspicion that haunted him. He didn't even want to voice the possibility. All he could do was wait and hope he was wrong. Scene 2. 3 months later in the Amazon jungle, at Research Outpost 12, near the village of Verdum, Brazil. This was Dr. Carlson's first visit to the incursion site. The local site administrator had erected scaffolding at the edge of the camp to monitor the infestation. While more than a half-mile from the edge, the sight of the blighted area was overwhelming. Eric Henderson joined the director at the monitoring lookout platform and handed him a breathing unit with a full face mask. "Sir, you need to carry this when you leave the climate-controlled mobile units," he said. "We're upwind right now, but if the wind shifts, an alarm will sound, and you'll have to put this on and go inside." Damon slung the small oxygen bottle over his shoulder and hooked the mask to a loop on his hazmat suit. "I didn't think there was a danger of infection," he said. "There's not," replied Henderson, "but the vines release a considerable amount of ammonia that can be dangerous in high concentrations." "Are the levels that high?" "Yes. In the center of the blight area, the concentration of ammonia exceeds toxic levels. You need a full contained breathing unit to go there." Looking back at the not-so-distant infestation, Damon asked, "How big is the infected area now?" "It's more than 2 miles across now, and it's growing larger every day." "How fast?" asked Damon. "You can actually see the vines grow. A single vine will grow more than an inch under 1 minute. That equates to more than 5 feet per hour, or between 100 and 200 feet per day. Based on that growth rate, we estimate that it all started about 6 weeks ago. The vines don't eat any plant or animal life. It just grows and spreads. All it needs is air, water, and spoil, and it grows. But it releases ammonia and trace amounts of nitric acid, so it kills all plant life it encounters. Animals aren't killed, but they are displaced. We are facing an ecological disaster here if we don't stop this." Pausing, he asked, "So, you gotten any information to confirm its origin?" Damon nodded solemnly. "Yes. NASA and the military's space surveillance network finally released a report that indicates that there were 2 impacts detected exactly 6 weeks ago. One in Africa and the other here. No one thought they were anything special. Pieces of space debris or old satellites deorbit every week, and 2 small meteors would hardly be noticed." "That would make sense. There is a small crater at the epicenter of the blight zone. The infection likely started there. You mean there's another place like this? In Africa?" "Yes, but it's high up in the mountains and almost impossible to reach. Satellite photos, however, confirm that a site like this is at the other impact location. The bad news is that the CDC has confirmed that the infestation is not of terrestrial origin." "Wow," said Henderson. "I was thinking it was a mutation or a bioweapon gone wrong." "No," said Damon. "The thing's a cross between a fungus and a slime mold. But it's nitrogen-based. The Defense Department thinks it's a precursor to an alien invasion, and that the organism is designed to transform the planet to one that isn't oxygen-based, but rather ammonia and methane." "So, like terraforming?" "More like xenoforming. Terraforming would be like changing Mars to something more like Earth. This is changing this planet to something very unearth-like." "Dear God," muttered Henderson. "In any case," continued the director, "it's official. The scientists have named the organism Necroxenophysarum, or NXP for short. That means deadly alien slime mold. That's too much of a mouthful. The locals here call the stuff Vigieros de Fogo, or fire vines, because they excrete trace amounts of nitric acid in addition to ammonia, and it burns the skin." Henderson frowned and almost growled as he said, "This is not good news. This is not good news at all." "The good news," said Damon, "is that now we understand what it is. It took almost 2 months, but several different countries are teaming up. And we're going to stop this. This isn't like climate change. This is something you can see and touch, and we now know that it's an alien threat." God, I hope you're right, because we haven't ever been able to slow it down. No known herbicides or pesticides affect it. We're looking for a toxin, but so far the only thing we've been able to use is fire. Don't worry, we'll find something. We're on it now. At that point, the direction of the wind changed slightly, and alarms sounded across the compound. As he headed toward one of the mobile shelters, Director Carlson hoped he had told Henderson the truth. All of the attendees joined the meeting remotely, using encrypted teleconferencing software developed by the military. Representatives from 11 countries were in attendance. More than 40 had initially signed up for the eradication effort, but only a handful of them actually attended meetings, and even fewer provided any substantive assistance. Dr. Damon Carlson currently presented his weekly report. As the photos show, the infested area has continued its expansion virtually unabated. The blighted area has expanded to an area nearly 15 miles across. That's over 700 square miles. Not only have we not successfully contained its spread, its rate of growth is increasing. We discovered the hard way that after about 3 months, the soft rubber-like vines thicken and become hard. At that point, dense nodes of vines grow vertically, rising to a height of 15 to 20 feet. They then grow large spherical structures at the top of these small towers. After a day or two, these structures turn black and erupt, spreading clouds of spores that spread on the wind. This not only accelerates the spread of the infestation, it is also incredibly deadly. In the last year, we've had our share of accidents. We've had several people die from acid burns and accidents with fire equipment, but these spore clouds have now directly killed people. If the spores are inhaled, they attach themselves to the lining of the lungs, and vines sprout and grow. Death results in less than a day. No treatment has been developed to cure or mitigate such infections. Where we have been trying to burn back the expanding perimeter of the blight, we are now focused entirely on finding and destroying these spore towers, or sporangia, before they germinate. We've been using drones to locate the towers, and helicopters and planes to firebomb them before they mature enough to rupture and release their spores. With our effort to contain the spread stopped, we are now losing about 1,200 acres, or about 2 square miles a day. The number of new towers increases every day as the fire vines thicken and mature. Soon they will be appearing faster than we can even destroy them. We desperately need more resources, or we're all going to fail here, and the results will be disastrous for everyone on the planet. As he finished his presentation, Carlson threw down the pointer he had been using, but no one seemed to be affected by his attempt at dramatics. Still, no one spoke for a minute until Ingrid Anderson, the executive director of UNEP, took the floor. "Thank you, Dr. Carlson," she said. "We all understand your situation and your frustration. Unfortunately, our problem is with those countries that are not represented here today. Many of those nations that initially signed up for this project pledged money and support to assist in this eradication endeavor. However, they have failed to follow through on their promises. The issue is that they do not share your sense of urgency and immediacy in these matters. Many of those countries are overseas, and they are far away from the 2 primary infestation sites. Also, the size of the incursion areas is less than the area associated with many regional forest fires. Since neither their people nor their economies are being adversely impacted, they simply choose not to care. Several of those countries have completely withdrawn from the program and feel this matter is a purely local issue that Brazil and the Congo should deal with themselves. But don't they realize how dire this situation is?" pleaded Damon. "While it's true that it would take a century or more to spread completely around the globe, the Earth's ecological systems will collapse far sooner than that. And because the rate of growth is accelerating, the point at which we will not be able to respond will soon be upon us." Ingrid frowned. "No, you are correct, Doctor. She lowered her eyes and composed herself before continuing. They do not understand that, and it is not likely the issue of global warming and climate change. I am amazed every day at the ability of people to ignore or deny what they simply do not want to believe. We can, however, increase our support for your activities. We can, for at least a short time, double the number of people at this site, but pooling resources from the African location. If we completely eradicate the infection here, we can then focus on the other location. Damon shook his head. Abandoning the other site would be a grave mistake. Perhaps, replied Ingrid, but it is the best we can do. Tell me what you need today. I'll continue to work on the resources we will have in the future. Well, said Damon, with the spore releases that occurred before we started destroying the Firevine towers, there were more than 50 hotspots. New, small hotspots across the area 150 miles across. We should eliminate those and then return our focus to this main site. All right. What worked best? She asked. Well, fire works best. It destroys the vines, but only on the surface. Unless there's an immediate follow-up, tilling the soil and burning it again, the root-like tendrils under the ground will resurface within a day. We need farming equipment and large supplies of petrol. Okay. What else works? Well, radiation kills, but it's also very dangerous for people. And it sterilizes the soil and the microbiota so that it is as dead as the surface of the moon. Similarly, heavy metals kill the vines, and when poisoned, they do not grow back. But we would need large quantities of lead, mercury, arsenic, and cadmium compounds. But those chemicals are also toxic to humans and also permanently poison the soil. I have been asked if nuclear bombs would work. Dear God, no, said Damon. Bombs like that would shred the vines and disperse them high into the atmosphere, where they would rain down and spread the infection across thousands of square miles. Bombs of any kind would make matters infinitely worse. Is there anything else? Well, we have several engineers working on a form that contains hydrofluoric acid. The acid kills the vines and prevents regrowth. The foam blocks the air and prevents both growth and reinfection. It has worked in a couple of tests, but we need more chemicals and a manufacturing site. Such efforts have a real chance of working, and we could completely stop the spread at this site, but it would kill the soil, and it would be many decades before anything could ever grow back. It would be a Pyrrhic victory at best. Draft a detailed plan and have it on my desk in 48 hours. I'll get you those people and chemicals, if I can. I only hope it'll be enough, said Damon. The executive director did not reply. She simply cut off the teleconference meeting and left Damon wondering if he had won or lost. He decided that against current policy, he needed to try to reach the President of the United States. He had to know that this wasn't a Brazilian problem or a UN problem. They needed to understand that if the infection reached the U.S., it could cover the U.S. in a handful of years. Scene 4. 3 weeks later at Dr. Carlson's office at the World Conservation Monitoring Center in Cambridge. Dr. Damon Carlson had been summoned to an emergency conference call, and he logged in to find more than 50 other participants were already online. The host was, once again, Ingrid Anderson, the executive director of the UN Environmental Program. But the list of attendees indicated that the Secretary General of the United Nations and the President of the United States were also online. Everyone was muted by the host, and online chat had been disabled. Also, an announcement blinked across the center of his display that said that the meeting would begin when all required people were present. Apparently, many of the attendees already here were optional. After a couple more minutes, the blinking announcement disappeared and the Secretary General spoke. Thank you all for coming. I have an important announcement to share. Approximately 10 hours ago, a craft of extraterrestrial origin appeared and parked itself several hundred meters away from the International Space Station in low Earth orbit. It then transmitted a message to the space station while simultaneously broadcasting on several hundred radio and television frequencies in 50 different languages. The message was quite lengthy, but let me read a partial transcript of that communication. Some time ago, another race in our galactic community purchased a planet in a star system nearby. Part of that purchase agreement included a landscaping package to alter the planet's ecosystem so that it would be more accommodating to their species. Unfortunately, when we visited your planet a little more than one of your years ago, we delivered that package to the wrong destination. When we realized our mistake, we immediately returned to your world to mitigate the impact of that error. However, the ecology-altering effects of that mistaken delivery have already begun. We cannot retrieve the package, and we cannot undo the damage that has been done. However, we can provide cleanup pods that will eradicate the original organisms that were inadvertently delivered to your world. Please note, errors such as these are extremely rare, and at some time in the future, we will endeavor to return to make reparations. Unfortunately, we cannot stay any longer since we are now behind schedule in completing our original contract. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience. The secretary summarized, saying, "There was more to the message, but this is all that pertains to this group, and its mission to combat the alien infestation that has plagued our world since their first visitation." Immediately after the transmission completed, the alien vessel dropped more than 500 pods around the original infestation sites. They're supposed to contain something that will remedy the infestation of the alien vines, but we do not yet know what they might be. It was about then that Damon stopped listening. The meeting continued for some time, but the speakers kept everyone else muted, and they only talked about things that no one really cared about. Mostly praising countries that hadn't helped much at all during the crisis of the previous year, downplaying the damage that had been done, and the magnitude of the danger they had faced. Finally, they highlighted the importance of alien first contact, as they made noise and empty promises about global unification and technology sharing. Damon logged off after about 20 minutes and sat alone in his office, hoping his phone wouldn't ring for a while. Scene 5. Command Outpost at the Brazilian infestation site. Dr. Damon Carlson stood on the observation platform, similar to the one he had visited more than a year before. Once again, Eric Henderson, the chief scientist at this location, joined him. This time, however, they did not have to wear hazmat suits, masks, or oxygen tanks. "The alien eradication pods appear to be working," said Henderson. "Each of the pods that landed released thousands of black beetles that eat the alien vines that flourished here." Henderson handed a small transparent plastic cube that contained one of these creatures. "As you can see, they're large scarab-like bugs that look like giant June bugs, but they have far too many legs." Damon lifted the plastic box and studied the organism inside. As he examined it, Henderson continued. "The scientists call them xenoscarabs. They haven't given them an official name yet because they can't decide what phylum or class under which the beetles should be classified. The locals call them Bezourus diablos, or demon beetles. They eat the vines ravenously and breed with almost as much fervor. In the thickest areas of infestation, little can be seen except a black carpet of the insects. When they move on, nothing is left except barren earth that's still sterile and dead." "So the crisis is over?" asked Damon. "Well, maybe. For the most part, at least. There are still a few problems." "Like what?" "Well, after the bugs finish eating the fire vines, they don't die right away. Most of them do, but some seem to have developed a taste for terrestrial fungus. They've taken to eating the roots of some types of large trees here in the Amazon, but at least they don't poison the earth the way the vines did. Unfortunately, unless we find a way to eliminate them, they may finish the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest as we know it." "So now we have to eradicate the bugs that ate the vines that were killing the planet?" Something like that. The science teams are looking for ways to kill the bugs, but their biology is so different that there hasn't been a lot of success. They also spread faster than the vine. They hitch rides on trucks and in equipment crates and in people's gear and on ships. They're as rugged as cockroaches and as hard to get rid of. They've already been found in more than 10 other countries. Great, muttered the director. Now we've got to find a cure for the cure the aliens gave us. Shaking his head, he said, it'll never end. Every change that anyone makes to an ecosystem sends out waves that will affect everything else. Henderson laughed. Hey, don't be so gloomy. You should consider it job security. Sighing deeply, Damon muttered, Sometimes, I wish I were unemployed. Then they both remained silent for a while as they watched the sun descend toward the horizon of Brazil's new desert. I know an old lady who swallowed a fly. I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. I know an old lady who swallowed a spider that wriggled and jiggled and tickled inside her. She swallowed the spider to catch the fly. I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. I Know an Old Lady, written by Rose Bond and Alan Mills. Copyright 1952. Pier International Limited, Canada. SOCAN. Thank you for listening. As you know by now, we love our listeners, fans, patrons, and supporters. You're going to be noticing some changes to the podcast. There is going to be some new channel artwork, new authors, more new authors, and we'll be airing some old favorites. So we'd like to hear from you and let us know what you think. The best way to do that is to subscribe on our website, untold-tales.com. We want to make sure that we are creating stories and an experience that you're enjoying. We hope to hear from you. Again, thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.